Welcome students to the lecture series of eco105. The reference reading for this lecture would be chapter 2, Thinking Like an Economist by N. Gregory Menkel, Principles of Economics, 6th edition. So economics trains us to think in terms of alternates. In our life, we have so many alternates and the resources we have are very limited. So we continuously have to make our choices among all the alternates that we have in our life. So for example, instead of watching this lecture video, if you could have also watched an online movie now at this moment, but since you have chosen to watch this online lecture, which means you have made a decision among the alternates that you have. So that is why economics, or that is how economics trains us to think in terms of alternates. Since the time that you have is fixed, that is why you can at a particular time do only one single thing. So as like the time, there are a lot of other scarce resources in our life, and that is why if we need to use those scarce resources, we continuously have to make different choices among all other alternates that we face. Economics also help us evaluate the cost of individual and social choices, and in economics we study how individual choices lead up to a social choice. So for example, if you decide to invest on your education now at this moment by paying tuition at Brack University, so you are making the education decision by yourself. And if you do so, and if all other students and all other friends of yours do the same for them, then at the end the society will also have a huge amount of students who would be educated. So that is how the individual choices lead up to a social welfare phenomenon. Economics also trains us to examine and understand how certain events and issues are related. So in other words, economics help us understand how an economic situation in a particular country can affect that of another country. So for example, if you compare USA and Bangladesh, so in future if the income of US citizen falls, this will also impact the Bangladesh economy. How? Because if the income of US economic citizen falls, which means they would be exporting less amount of goods and services from Bangladesh. So in a way, Bangladesh will also face a reduction in export, and as a result the economy of Bangladesh will also suffer. So that is how economics help us understand the correlation between two countries, two nations, or different economic events. The economic way of thinking involves thinking analytically and objectively. So we always try to identify what are the problems in front of us and what are the possible solutions that we can provide to solve those problems. That is basically acting analytically. And economists make use of scientific method. By scientific method, we mean we use abstract models to explain how a complex real world operates, and economists develop theories and they collect and analyze data to evaluate the validity of those theories. In all of those theories, a very important role is played by the assumptions. So economists make assumptions in order to make the world easier to understand. And the art in scientific thinking is deciding which assumption to make. So there can be possibly a list of assumptions that could have been made to explain a particular theory, but not all the assumptions will lead up to a valid theory. So it is very important for the economists to identify correctly what are the necessary assumptions they need to make. And economists use different assumptions to answer different questions. So they would choose those assumptions that are specific to a particular problem, or the assumptions that are specific to explain a particular model. Talking about models in economics, we use models to simplify reality in order to improve our understanding of the world. And these models help us explain the world in a much more easy way. So the two of the most basic economic models include the circular flow diagram and the production possibility frontier. So in this chapter we shall look onto each of them one by one. The first model is the circular flow diagram. Circular flow diagram is a visual model of the economy that shows how dollars flow through market among households and farms. Here we refer to dollar as monetary value of any note. Now instead of dollars you can think of taka or any other currencies. However, in this book occasionally we will find that dollars are used more often, and this is because dollars are international currency, as well as this is a North American book written by a North American author, so most of the examples are related to US economy, and that is why they use dollars more often. However, we shall, as the course proceeds, try to explain all the economic theories and models in terms of Bangladesh economy as well. We start the circular flow diagram by recognizing that in the economy there are two types of market. Market for goods and services and markets for factors of production. Market for goods and services is the market where goods and services are bought and sold. So by goods we mean all kind of daily necessary products that we buy in our life, and by services we mean all kind of services that we pay for. These services include health services, education services, transport services, etc. So if you buy a packet of bread or if you buy a laptop from a local seller, then that transaction takes place in this particular market, that is market for goods and services. It includes all kind of goods and services that we enjoy in our life. On the other hand, when we refer to markets for factors of production, this is the market where wage earners or salary earners earn their wage and salary. This is the market where employees get their salary and given by their firms or given by their employers, and the entire economy then is divided into two group of people, the farms and the households. The farms are the group of people who produce and sell goods and services by hiring and using factors of production. So here the term factors of production refer to each and every single component that we use to produce something. So for example, you can take laborers. So laborers are used by firms, and they, in exchange of their service, they get monthly salary. As opposed to that, we have the households who buy and consume goods and services, and they own and sell factors of production. So talking about the laborer who works for the farm, he is also a member of a household. When he would buy, let's say, a cup of coffee from a shop, so he would also be then a member of a household. So in the economy, all the people are divided into two groups, the producers or the farms and the households who are the consumers. So we start looking at how the entire process works. So we start from, say, household. So say you woke up in the morning and you grab a cup of coffee from Northern Coffee Roaster. Now, who are you? Again, since you are a member of a household, and when you are going to buy coffee from Northern Coffee Roasters, and that coffee belongs to the market for goods and services. So you buy that cup of coffee. This green line here goes from household to market for goods and services. So as soon as you pay for that cup of coffee, that amount of money, say for example a cup of coffee would be around 220 taka, so that amount of money goes to Northern Coffee Roasters cash account. And who is Northern again? So Northern Coffee Roaster is a farm because they are producing and selling coffee. So Northern Coffee Roaster is the firm here. So as soon as Northern Coffee Roaster gets that money from you, what they do, they need to pay their workers or their baristas their wage at the end of a month. So when Northern Coffee Roaster is paying its workers their wage at the end of the month, that transaction is taking place in the market for factors of production. Why? Because the worker is getting his salary from and here again the green line goes from farms to the markets for factors of production. Now if you consider that worker, who is that worker again? So after receiving his salary, the worker would buy his daily necessities from another grocery shop. So who is that worker? The worker belongs to household. So we started with households when I was grabbing a cup of coffee from Northern Coffee Roasters, and we ended up at household when the worker received his salary and tried buying goods for himself. So since we end up where we started from, that is why the entire flow is known as the circular flow diagram, because it tells us how the goods and services and the money goes round and round within these two market and two economic agent.